Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Let's Eat. I am just loving today's energy. It is a Monday. It is also the 1st of July. You'll be listening to this a week from now. It is a beautiful day. The weather feels like fall, and I must admit, fall is definitely my favorite season. And it's usually about this time, maybe a couple weeks from now, that I start to become very excited and a little bit too eager for fall. I quickly get over summer, and I was that kid that was asking my mom in July to go back to school shopping. I'm just an eternally wired person for fall. I just love fall so much, and this day is giving very much fall. And we're heading into July, which means that energy is about to come back full force, where I'm ready for all things pumpkin and I'm ready for cool weather and so on, especially after the heat wave we had last week. So I know some of you out there are probably like, Emily, it's July. Relax. And in New Jersey, summer typically lasts well into the early weeks of October to some extent. But I just love the fall. It's really the best time of year. You cannot tell me otherwise. And I have just been this way my whole life. I've always just quickly been ready to rock for fall. Give me a few weeks of summer and then I'm over it. Let's move on. Let's get fall. So today is just giving me that. Okay, so I'm basking in it. In other news, I officially have 2 slots available for holistic health and functional nutrition coaching for anyone who might be interested. I know summertime can be tough, but it doesn't make it impossible to make improvements in what you're eating and how you're living your life. And it can be such a powerful resource to really up-level your mental and your physical health, because you all know that that's really what I focus on with clients is the intersection of both our physical and our mental health and what that means in relation to the way we live our lives, our daily habits, our sleep, our exercise, nutrition, and so forth. So if this is something that resonates with you, or you feel like this is something that you've thought about before, please feel free to head over to my website. The information is in the show notes. You can schedule a free consult there. There's no strings attached to that. It's simply just an opportunity for us to decide if it's the right fit, not only for you, but also for me, right? I want to be sure that I'm able to offer you the best support that I can. And if that's not with me, maybe I can make referrals elsewhere, but it really gives us a chance to just touch base. What's going on? What are your concerns? And how could this potentially work for you and your health goals? So I wanted to be sure I put that out there because I love working with clients one-on-one, and I have so much fire in my heart for supporting others along their own wellness journey. And so I wanted to be sure I made it known that there are opportunities to do that if you're interested in working together. So aside from that, today's episode, we're talking about balance, and I thought that this came at the perfect timing because as we make our way through July, we are now in the midst of the summer, and I think a lot of times we can find ourselves in a tricky position when it comes to our health and wellness, or if we have a weight loss goal, or we're trying to develop a relationship with exercise, or whatever the case is. It can oftentimes become more challenging during the summer months when we have a lot going on, when we're traveling, when there's a vacation. And I understand that because I myself have been there, where the summer just kind of became a free-for-all, right? I didn't really pay much attention to what I was eating, how much I was drinking, how much I was moving or not moving, right? And I think that, then we kind of come to this space of, okay, now the summer's over, it's September, I can get back in a groove. And then we move through September, October, and then the holidays present themselves, and then we go through that same experience where the holidays kind of throw us off balance and throw us into this space of indulgence. And then we come to January, and everyone has New Year's resolutions, and it's all about, losing weight or exercising or, dry January or whatever the case is. And then, that we know how that ends. Typically, research says that it doesn't last too long. And then we find ourselves in the Marches and Aprils, which I've talked about time and time again, where, okay, now it's March and April, January and February kind of went by, my goals kind of fell to the wayside, but now summer's coming and I need to look a certain way. So I'm going to hit it hard, and then we find ourselves back in the summer, okay? If this is familiar with anyone, then this episode is for you. This is such, and I emphasize such, such an important topic of conversation and important focus for my clients when working together. It is a tedious process. It is a ongoing process. Okay, this is not like a one and done. It just magically transforms overnight. It is truly the development of a lifestyle that is the ultimate goal for the work that I do with clients. Now, this is not meant to be a diet. It's not meant to be a temporary fix. It's not meant to last for 6 weeks and then you say, okay, now what, right? The approach that I take is all about how can we create sustainability so that from day one, you are investing in the person that you want to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, and for the rest of your life. Now, don't get me wrong, right? There's trials and tribulations and challenges that come along with this, and it is a process, okay? But it is not an effective process, nor is it sustainable without the consideration of how important balance is in the midst of all of it. Okay. Now, I want to be sure that I explain kind of my perspective on balance and when it comes to how I live my life and how I approach things. And then also, how this works with working with clients, and then give you some strategies on how you can define it for yourself. Because ultimately, I'm telling you, and I say this with such confidence, you will never succeed and you will never create sustainability in a lifestyle or in a dietary pattern or choice or whatever the case is if you are not considering the importance of fluidity, flexibility, and you are abandoning ship on the rigidity and the hyper structure that so many of us try to create within our nutritional choices or within our exercise that inevitably cave in on us, right? How many times have we been there where we've tried to follow a certain diet program, or we've tried to cut calories, or we've tried to exercise X amount of days a week with this workout and never miss a day and fill in the blank, right? All of those, all of that language and that terminology. How many of those programs have either A, imploded, right? Where we've missed one day and we just abandoned ship entirely, or we got to the end of that program successfully, but then we were left to our own devices and we didn't know what we're supposed to be doing, what we're supposed to be eating, and it kind of forced us to revert to our old habits, right? It forced us to revert to something because we have to eat, right? We can't just not eat. So we just decided to go back to what we know, and then we gain the weight back, or that we resume, eating all the sugar or eating the processed foods or whatever the case is, and we're back to not feeling so hot. And that is ultimately, and I'll leave before I cut myself off here, that is really the nature of these programs. Right? Nutrisystem is the one that comes to mind. Nutrisystem sends you meals so you can lose weight. But then after that, what are you supposed to do? You can't live on Nutrisystem for the rest of your life, right? So what about the after plan? What about the after plan? This reminds me a lot about addiction recovery. And in my schooling, right, in grad school, when we learned about addiction and spent time exploring, addiction treatment, it was all about the recovery environment that mattered. And you can't heal in the environment that made you sick, right? So this reminds me a lot about addiction. You could go through a detox, you can go through rehab, but what matters is what your recovery environment looks like, who you're surrounding yourself with, what you have access to, where are you working, where are you spending your time, right? What's in your immediate environment that's going to either support your sobriety or not. And now I know that this isn't necessarily the same thing. It really does have similar flavors to it though, right? Because if you work on a program of some kind, right, whether it's for your nutrition and your diet, or it's for exercise of a certain kind, you can be successful throughout the whole program, but it's a matter of what you're doing thereafter that matters. And that's really what I do my very best to equip my clients with, in terms of teaching them how to be an authority in their own kitchen, but then also acknowledging the importance of balance and how valuable it is to celebrate that, and how valuable it is to enjoy life and be present and practice balance, but return to that home base of eating nourishing and nutrient-dense foods, moving our body regularly, sleeping properly, monitoring our exposure to toxins, and so forth. So in this episode, we're going to get into all of that. I know I kind of just went on a tangent, but I really wanted to drive the point home first and foremost, what you're going to get out of this episode, but how I feel about this, because it's so important and it is a non-negotiable part of my work with clients. And I try my very best to work with them in defining it for themselves, because ultimately that's where it's going to be most sustainable and most successful, is when they find that definition for themselves. So we're going to dive into that, talk about it, explore it, really kind of dismantle all that comes along with finding your own balance. And by the end of this episode, I hope you're feeling more empowered, you're feeling energized, you're feeling excited, because it's exciting and it's a part of being healthy. It's a part of being healthful, is acknowledging that life is short and there has to be balance. Otherwise, you're destined to fail. All right. So welcome to the table. This is such an exciting episode. It's long overdue. I think the timing is perfect, especially in the middle of the summer. Maybe you need this to kind of pick you up, to give you a little bit more to, continue to invest in your health and wellness, even throughout a busy season, even throughout the season that typically is, one that sometimes takes a little bit more extra effort and focus to really invest in yourself in that way. But I'm hopeful this episode will help you, and I welcome you to my table. Let's eat. So I think what's important to start with here is the fact that defining balance for yourself really does take time. Okay, because I look at my experience and my journey over the past, I'm 29, so let's say 10 years, and really see how my relationship with nutrition and exercise has evolved. Now, obviously, part of it has to do with the fact that my career has now completely evolved into focusing on nutrition and exercise and so forth, right? It didn't start this way, nor did my schooling start this way. But I look at the way that my experience has unfolded and what I've gone through and what diets I've tried and what my relationship with exercise has looked like, which I've shared about on, the podcast. You'll have to go back and listen to my story because I share about that in great detail. But I've definitely seen how things have ebbed and flowed. And I would argue maybe about age 26, 27, that's where things really evened out for me. That's where I became more consistent with my movement. That's where I became more consistent with my nutrition. It was in probably the last year and a half that I've kind of transitioned a little bit more in terms of like nutrition and what I'm eating more of and what maybe I'm eating less of. And that I think is an ongoing journey, especially as I get older, as I, hopefully one day plan to have children and so forth. Like nutritionally speaking, I think things will change. But as for where I am right now, I'm very happy and very content with how I choose to eat and what my diet looks like. I feel good as a result of that. And I think being willing to be flexible in that regard is important too. And that's essentially the message I'm trying to send, while also, reminding you that it does take time. It does take time to really kind of feel comfortable and feel flexible in the way you're choosing to live your life in a balanced way that feels good to you, that aligns with your body, and so forth, right? So be patient with that process, I think, is an important reminder upon diving into this episode. And as it relates to defining balance for yourself, this is critical because, as I said before, there's no one size fits all. There's no, one specific prescriptive way to approach your nutrition, your movement, anything. Number one, because what works for you and your life circumstances might not work for me. Number two, we're different in terms of our genetics. We're different in terms of biology. And we have, to consider that in relation to what we're eating, how we're moving, and more, right? And different phases of life are going to present you with different needs and different requirements, and being able to be fluid in those moments and tune into what your body's asking for as a result of that, also very essential. Okay. So when I think of balance, and in my life, my issue for the first half of my 20s was I would go really hard, and then I want to use a different word, but I'm just going to use this word. I would fall off, and then I go really hard, and then I fall off. And this is very evident, and I've shared on this through my episodes, explaining my story and so forth, about how there'd be certain times of the year where I would feel like more inspired or more motivated. And oftentimes it was a byproduct of, physically what I was looking like, right? Like what my physique looked like. And that would then prompt me to go work out or go eat healthy, quote unquote, right? And it was a very diet mentality approach, not only, in terms of what I was choosing to eat, but also just that kind of yo-yo experience of being really rigid for a certain amount of weeks and then stopping and reverting to my old ways. And I personally, while I think that there can be benefit to going on a diet, quote unquote, for some if they're looking to lose weight in a more structured way, I get that and I respect that. But what I really think is important is, why are we not just eating better for the sake of our mind and body, right? Why are we not just eating more healthfully? Why is it called going on a diet? And I see this all over the place, but why is it called going on a diet? Why can't it just be, this is the way I eat because it's healthful, because it's nourishing, because it gives my body the nutrients it needs to function, and my brain can thrive as a result of that? And I think that's really the dividing line, right? That is where we really need to bring our attention to when it comes to mindset, about the way we see eating more healthfully, and how reframing that narrative is imperative if we're going to find a space of balance, right? Because what we want predominantly is to choose foods that are nourishing. We want to be choosing the majority of the time the foods that are going to bring our body and our brain what it needs to function. That is what our bodies are meant for, okay? That is what we are meant to be consuming. We're not meant to be consuming processed foods. We're not meant to be consuming food-like substances, artificial ingredients, industrial oils, right? We're not meant for these things, but we've just normalized that. And now the alternative, eating more healthfully, is considered dieting. So we have to really call our attention to, what types of thoughts do I have around that? Because I assure you, you will not be able to create a lifestyle until you actually draw your attention to, what are the thoughts and beliefs that I have around making this change? Are my thoughts indoctrinated and my beliefs indoctrinated by what culture has deemed as normal, which is all the foods I just listed? And how is that inhibiting my ability to move forward in the space of more of a lifestyle versus a diet? Okay. So that, first and foremost, I think lays the foundation for creating sustainability, because building off of that is where you really start to identify with finding balance. Because if you were to continue, let's say, for example, you continue through this diet mentality, and then you choose, say, for example, this week, it's the 4th of July. You go to a barbecue, you have a hot dog, you have a hamburger, you have whatever your festivities include, okay? If you were living in a space of a diet, right? If you were trying to follow a diet, you might, one, avoid those foods. I can't have that, I'm on a diet. You might have it and then feel guilty about it the next day and over-exercise to burn it off. Or fill in the blank, right? What would that look like for you? Either way, it's restriction, it's rigidity, it's stress. Okay, what it boils down to is it's stress. And the stress of all of that, and I'm going to say this multiple times throughout this episode, so please listen up. The stress of all of that is more harmful to your journey, to your health, than just eating the food itself. Okay? Than just eating the food itself. There is nothing truer than what I just said, than the statement I just said. I say this with absolute certainty. The stress and the energy and the hyperfixation and the avoidance and the, okay, I've got to only have one, or I've got to, I can't have too much of this, can't have too, fill in the blank. All of that is more harmful to your physical and your mental health than just enjoying being present, being mindful, and moving on. So when it comes to, say, 4th of July, that's one of the best things that we can do, right? Is if we are caught up in that diet mentality, we are going to fall into the category of one of the previous few statements I just made, or scenarios that I just listed, right? We might identify with one of those. We might identify with something more specific to you, right? All good, no problem, right? However, if you're looking at it through a lifestyle mentality, where this week you are eating nourishing foods, you're moving your body, you're sleeping properly, come Thursday, maybe you get up, you go for a walk. Most people have the day off, right? So you go for a walk, you have some protein, you get your morning sunlight, you take your supplements, and then you head to a barbecue in the afternoon. And there's this potato salad or this pasta salad that your mother-in-law makes, and you look forward to it every year. It's so good. And you have a scoop or two of the pasta salad, right? And you be present with it, and you enjoy it, and you bring your attention to the intentionality of being mindful with it, right? And you enjoy, and you're present, and you're laughing, and you're spending time with friends and family. And then you go home, you wake up the next day, and you go about your day. Now, for some, this might be unheard of. For some, this might be really challenging. And I want to be with you in that and empathize with you with that, because I've come across this time and time again with clients where there's guilt, or there's this all or nothing thinking that creeps in, which is also something that's going to come up throughout this episode of, well, if I had the fill in the blank X, Y, or Z yesterday, I need to exercise to make up for it, or I need to eat less today, or why bother trying today because I had, whatever I had yesterday. All of that, I want to tell you, is while it's not necessarily the most healthful approach to addressing your nutrition and your exercise, I want to say it's very common, and I think it's very normalized, and I think it's also very rooted in a diet mentality. So the way that balance plays into all of this is, first and foremost, is allowing ourselves the space to be gentle, to be open to the flexibility, the fluidity, the ebbs and flows of life. And that can be really hard, especially when we have some sort of goal that we're working towards and we really want to lose weight, or we really want to look a certain way, or we really want to become healthier or heal ourselves. There's probably a lot of practitioners out there that would listen to this episode and be like, no chance. You have to follow things to a T. You have to be rigid, avoid refined sugar, avoid industrial oils, seed oils, and so forth. And yeah, I'm going to suggest that absolutely 110%. I'm going to give you the parameters that I think we all need to be more aware of as it relates to mind body health. That's not going to be something I don't do, right? Because that's my job. That's what I believe. And I know that that's what is going to help us heal and feel better, right? But at the same time, life is so short. Life is so short. And I'm also a big believer in the impact that stress has on the body. And I know because I've experienced it, I know because I see it with clients, I know that the stress that we are putting on ourselves to maintain said rigidity is going to harm us more because of the way that stress plays a role on the body. And so we have to be willing to look at it and say, there indeed inherently in that is a balance in and of itself. Is I can still prioritize more healthful food. I can prioritize moving regularly. I can prioritize good quality sleep. I can prioritize my supplementation, my mindfulness, my mental health. I can prioritize all of these things, but that can also look like having the potato salad or the macaroni salad on 4th of July because it's something you look forward to every single year, right? What is so important here is that we're able to take the pressure off ourselves of being perfect. What's important here is we're able to take the pressure off of ourselves of following something so rigidly that we lose touch with the importance of just being and just being present and taking care of ourselves in a way that feels good. I don't know about you. Okay, I don't know about you, but anytime I force myself into the space of this rigid diet or intensive exercise, I did not feel good. I didn't feel good, right? I didn't feel like I was doing something good for myself. I just felt like, okay, I just got to get through it. I just got to make it to, June 1st, or I just got to get through this week of workouts and then I can rest, right? It's like, feels like, even just the energy that I'm feeling in my body as I kind of recount that experience for myself, it doesn't feel good. And that's the difference between real true nourishment and really just pure stress, right? That's the difference that's there. And so one of my biggest priorities when working with clients is educating them and bringing their attention to this over and over and over again. My one client that I've been seeing now for, it'll be 2 years in October, she has made tremendous strides. Her initial concerns were digestive in nature. She had a lot of issues digestively, symptomatically, and so forth, and she's come a long, long way. But one of the comments that she's made over the course of mostly the past year, I would say, since she's really kind of solidified this routine, is this is just how I live my life, right? I just organically choose higher quality foods. I just know how to build a plate that's balanced. I just know how to fuel my body properly. I just know how to do these things, and that's just what I do. So even if there's a weekend where she's away, she's traveling, she has a wedding, whatever the case is, she's still following some structure that I offer clients so that they can make a more healthful choice, right? But she also is enjoying herself. She's being present. She's taking in what is being offered to her, because that's what life's about. Right? That is what life is about. It's about being present. And I would argue too, and this shows up in the research, that spending time with friends and family and being present in those moments is one of the best things we can do for our health. A lot of research came out after the pandemic that showed how harmful social isolation is and how valuable community, love, support, how valuable that is. I mean, how often do we consider that in the formula of what it means to be healthy? I don't think we do often enough. And I think a lot of us feel like we have to isolate ourselves, or we have to follow this stringent approach to health because that's what makes us healthy, when in reality, we're simply delaying or inhibiting our ability to make it sustainable. And we're also putting excess stress on ourselves. And that will be more harmful, more detrimental to our progress than simply finding your own definition of balance. And that is a philosophy that I will stand by through and through. That is the philosophy that I myself follow. And when it comes to my own version of balance, I think it really does ebb and flow with life. I predominantly fill my fridge and I live my life in a way where I'm choosing nutrient-dense, whole, rich foods the majority of the time, and that's what I love. But I also love ice cream, and I also love, what else do I love? Onion rings. It's so random, but I, as you know, have worked in a bar for many years, and we have the best onion rings, and I love them. I literally love them, okay? Now, am I having them every week? No, I'm not, and that's fine. I also know that they don't make me feel good, right? But I'm going to have them when I want them. This week's the 4th of July. I don't really know what my plans are, but if I only can eat the food that's offered there, maybe I'll choose to work out earlier in the day because I know that makes me feel good. It puts me in a better mood. It helps my energy levels. I'll choose maybe a smoothie before I go as a way to kind of support my blood sugar before, whatever it is that's offered at the barbecue or wherever it is I end up going. But I'm also just going to be there and be present and enjoy and take advantage of the opportunity to be with friends and family and celebrate the holiday and whatnot. But it's about allowing yourself the space to take care of yourself and gravitate towards what feels good. It doesn't feel good to not eat at a barbecue. It doesn't feel good to fixate on, okay, how much dessert am I going to be allowed to have? Or I've got to control myself, or, fill in the blank, right? Like it's super specific to you. So I think that that's what's really important here, is that you are listening to this and making it more tailored to what would come up for you, so that you can then make the necessary adjustments and take the necessary steps to approach it maybe a little bit differently. But I mean, just being so fixated on what can I eat? Is this too many carbohydrates? Is this too unhealthy? Or whatever the case is, really becoming so consumed by this. How can you really be present and have a good time if that is all you're consumed by, right? And then I wake up Friday morning and I move my body. I have my matcha. I have my greens. I do what I would normally do, right? And I live my life in that space. It is the least amount of pressure. I'm telling you, the least amount of pressure is where you will find the most success. Now, I will also sneak in a caveat here and say, sometimes we use that as an excuse, right? Sometimes there are times where we use this kind of concept of balance as an excuse to overindulge or as an excuse to justify certain choices. I don't want to say that's necessarily wrong, but it's also not necessarily right, okay? You have to be willing to give yourself some tough love to some extent and say, you know what? As much as I want to live in a space of balance, I also want to honor the fact that this does not align with the goals that I have for myself, or this is indicative of something that my body's asking for that I'm not able to give it, or maybe I should be more intentional about having more protein so that I'm able to normalize or stabilize my sugar cravings, right? Or whatever the case is, right? Like, I think being able to work through that and call yourself out when there might be an excuse being made, I think that's a really valuable skill set too, to kind of call in. So I don't want to say that we can always use balance as our rationale, okay? Because sometimes we abuse it a little bit too much. However, I think, by being able to step into a space of balance more regularly, you'll notice that you're able to resume as normal and not feel like there's this massive drop off that takes place because you chose to have the potato salad. I'm going to run with this example because I think it's the best way for me to kind of explain it. What am I saying? Have this potato salad and then wake up Friday morning and feel like everything's lost. Everything's ruined. I've completely shattered my diet and now I need to, do X, Y, and Z to fix it, right? Because that, to me, that is so much more harmful and so much more inhibitory to creating continuity. That's the best word I could use here. Because then what happens Friday? Then you're back to restricting. Then you're back to over-exercising. And then you maybe continue to operate in this cycle. Because then you go to another barbecue on Sunday, say for example, and you find yourself in the same predicament. And then you're back on Monday feeling guilty, feeling regret. And it really just does not have to be that way. It does not have to be that way. And I say this so confidently because I know, because I lived it and I've been there, and I know I'm kind of all over the place with this episode, so bear with me here. But it's a topic that I'm so passionate about, and I think that we've gotten it so wrong in our culture. And I think if we were all just a little bit more gentle and graceful when approaching our nutritional choices and habits, and not only that, okay, I'll go a little bit deeper as to say, doing that deeper work to identify where is this resistance coming from, okay? First and foremost, when it comes to nutrition, sugar cravings can be a symptom of something going on underneath the surface, right? So I don't want to say that, you practicing balance with these outrageously intense sugar cravings is something that we should just try and do, right? If you're having extreme sugar cravings, look at underneath the surface. What is the symptom? What is the symptom saying? Well, how is your body communicating with you in this way? Because that's just one example of how you can be up against challenge when it comes to trying to establish balance, but you also feel like you're out of control and you can't control yourself. And that can be really, really impactful on the way you see yourself, on your self-worth, on your beliefs around, if I can become healthier, will I be? Can I do this, right? And it really is just something physiological that's off, whether it's a hunger hormone issue or you're not getting enough protein or your gut health, there's imbalances in your gut microbiome. I mean, there's a number of reasons that this can be a problem. Blood sugar issues, there's a list, the list goes on, right? So I want you to be really intentional about also pulling that into the equation too, so that you're able to equip yourself and make it a little bit easier. And then also really look at, what does my history look like with movement? I can't tell you how many times people come in with such resistance because they've been unsuccessful in the past in creating sustainability in their relationship with movement. And now they're heading in, trying to do it again. And the underlying beliefs around their capability have not been yet addressed. And that is inevitably going to cause resistance. And it's going to be much harder to create a space of balance when you have that resistance there. So in that regard, in that respect, there might be some deeper work that needs to take place in order for you to eventually get to a place where balance is achievable. But that is the ultimate destination. And I'm telling you, that is where you will feel most whole, is if you're able to cultivate that for yourself. You're able to find that space for yourself, whatever that looks like. And in seasons of life, that maybe, you're finding you're extra stressed, right? And you need extra rest, right? So your workouts fall to the wayside. That's balance too, right? If you know this week I'm exceptionally busy and there's a lot going on, whether personally, financially, with work, whatever the case is, and you need that extra rest, give yourself the space to rest. That's balance. Taking a week off of workouts, it's probably going to do so much better than trying to wake up at 4:45 every day to get your workout in and put more stress on your body when you're already in a stressed out spot. But the trick is, if you're operating through the diet mentality, we'll call it that for the sake of this example, you would then, maybe come the next week, feel like, well, I missed the whole week last week, so why should I even bother, right? Why bother? I'm not gonna even try, right? Or I give up. Or I messed up, I failed, I can't do this. Versus the lifestyle of, yeah, my body needed that. My body needed the rest. Maybe my mind needed the rest. My body certainly needed the sleep. And now I'm just going to, get back to it. I'm going to go for a walk today. Or I'm going to try, a 30-minute Peloton ride. I'm just going to ease back into it because I've taken the time off and now my body's ready to get back to it. And that's okay. I'm here to tell you that is okay. Because what would happen here is you get back to it after a week off and you ease back into your workouts, you get back into your routine, get back into your rhythm, and you're back to it versus I took a week off and now 6 months have gone by and I haven't done anything at all, right? Which is very much the all or nothing mentality. Not to mention, there's a lot of mental conflict that can come along with that, right? If you say, oh, I took a week off, why would I do that? Now, I'm going to gain all this weight back, or you should have just done it. You shouldn't have been lazy. Why did you do, once again, fill in the blank, okay? Because I think we've all been there where we beat ourselves up for not doing it. And then we become discouraged. And then we just decide, what, it's just not worth it, right? I can't do it. I'm not motivated, whatever the case is, okay? So the goal here, I'll give you kind of a vague goal, is to get you to a place where you're able to find that balance and be gentle with yourself in the choices that you're making, but always return to that home base of the foundation that fuels you. That is the goal, because that will always be there. And that is really always where you want to operate from. Real whole foods, proper hydration, nourishing your gut, supporting your liver, moving your body, sleeping and getting good quality restorative sleep, managing your relationship with technology, avoiding environmental toxins and reducing your toxin exposure. All of this, while it does take energy and effort and investment, that is your home base. That's where we want to always return to. But that takes reinforcement, right? It takes time. So you get comfortable in that regard of finding a rhythm that works for you nutritionally, knowing how to build your plate, knowing how to create a healthy relationship with exercise that works for you and your schedule. So that first and foremost is essential. But building off of that is where you get to a place of balance. And even throughout, as you're building that foundation, is creating that balance, is understanding how life happens. And there's going to be moments where you have your piece of birthday cake. There's going to be moments where you miss a workout. There's going to be moments where you stay up later than you intended, right? And that is okay. That is what life is about. And the second that you're able to forgive yourself, the second that you're able to allow those moments to happen and be a part of your routine, is the second that you have much less stress, is the second that you enjoy life more fully, and is the second that you create more sustainability in the journey that you're on. And ultimately, that's what we all want, right? That's the biggest hurdle for so many people, is their inability to call out the all or nothing thinking that oftentimes takes over and create more of a mentality that this is for the long term. So if I expect myself to never have a piece of birthday cake ever again, that's so unrealistic. So unrealistic. Now, could you make a dairy-free, gluten-free, refined sugar-free cake and enjoy that just as much? Yes, absolutely, okay? But what's better than a piece of funfetti cake with vanilla icing? Okay, I'm team funfetti all the way. Are there artificial dyes and refined sugar and corn syrup and all that wonderful, all of those wonderful ingredients in there? Yes, of course there is. Okay, and you could avoid that and spend the whole birthday party worried about it and being like, I gotta stay away from it. I can't look at it. If somebody offers it to me, I have to know what to say. I have to, oh, I'm on a diet, or should I just, drink more water? Maybe that will quiet my sugar craving. Whatever, okay, whatever outrageous things come to mind, have a bite, have 2 bites, have yourself some cake, and move on. Because the majority of the time you are in that space of home base where you are taking care of yourself, you're nourishing yourself, and that is what's most important. Okay. Now, this idea of balance is, I believe, one of the most effective ways for us to become our most healthful selves. And I really want you to be gentle with yourself. I know I mentioned this throughout, but that is one of the best things that we can bring with us as we move through establishing this for ourselves and finding our space of balance, is allowing yourself the space to figure it out. We are so hard on ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves, and we want to be perfect, and we want to do it right, and we want to figure it out, and we want it to happen quickly. And I think this is our biggest downfall. And the second that you're able to acknowledge this is a process, this is for the long term, your wellness journey does not have a destination, this is for the rest of your life, is the second that balance definitely becomes a lot more accessible to us, right? Because we're not looking at, oh, well, I need to look a certain way or I need to feel a certain way by, the end of the month. You're looking at it as a long-term journey, as an ongoing journey, but you're also practicing self-love. And I don't want to dive too much into this, but I think that's an important piece to consider, is that, the more pressure and the more stress we put on ourselves and the more we beat ourselves up when we're not doing it right or we can't figure it out, the harder it will be. Tending to the relationship that we have with ourselves is an essential part of this process. And I hope that you remember that, because, this is our only home and our health is one of the most valuable things that we have. And this is not just our physical being, right? But also our mental health and the relationship that we have with ourselves. And we can't trade that in. So being aware of how valuable it is to talk nicely to ourselves, to build awareness around what we're saying to ourselves, especially when we do have the birthday cake. What are we saying to ourselves? Are we beating ourselves up? Because that's going to then play out in our actions. It's going to show up in our relationships with ourselves. And I think being really conscientious through this process as you find your balance is going to be one of the most critical parts, because a lot of the times we're not even aware that it's happening, or maybe it's just autopilot for us to say negative things, to beat ourselves up when we make a more, or rather less nutrient dense choice. Okay, and a less healthful choice. But really, that's where balance comes in. That's where balance is important, and you can move on, you can move forward without the guilt, without the pressure, without the I shouldn't have done that, without the, I need to burn this off now. Now, that's not to say there's not going to be moments where we, stick our hand in the cookie jar and we look back and there's none left, and we're like, wait, where did they all go, right? Like, we have to be aware of that too, and draw our attention as to, why did this happen? Was I distracted? Did I have not enough to eat today? Was my sleep off last week, right? Because these are all indicators that can make us more susceptible to cravings, to overindulging, to making poor nutritional choices, right? And so I want to also be conscientious of that too, like I mentioned before. But really, at the end of the day, it's about being patient with yourself and holding your own hand and, being gentle as you make your way through this journey, because we only have one, right? We only have one of them, and might as well make it the fullest, the most whole that we possibly can in both mind and body and in soul, right? And that's where food for the soul comes in. That potato salad or pasta salad that your mother-in-law makes every 4th of July, that's food for the soul, and enjoy it. Be present with it. Savor the flavors. I mean, if you only get it one time a year, be with it, enjoy it. That's so important. And if you're going to waste one day avoiding something that you look forward to 364 of the other days of the year, that to me, what's the point, right? What is the point? It's not going to make you a healthier person. It's not going to allow you to lose that extra, 2 pounds, right? It's not going to do any of that. It's simply just going to cause you more stress. And you're going to be bummed out because what now? July 5th is here and now you have to wait a whole nother year and you're going to be maybe fixated on why didn't I just have that dang pasta salad? And maybe you're going to then choose something else. Maybe you'll find yourself binging on something else later that day or indulging in something else because you weren't meeting your body's need in terms of, fueling in a way that felt good for your soul. If you had the pasta salad on 4th of July and were content with it and said, yes, I'm so glad I did that, you could just move on and say, you know what, that was so good. I'm so grateful my mother-in-law makes this pasta salad and I'm going to, enjoy it again next year, right? So I hope that this episode, while it was a little bit more of like a pep talk than it was a strategy, it hopefully gave you some more clarity on what it means to live in balance. I cannot drive home the point further that it is a critical part of any wellness journey. It is critical. I'm telling you, in order to create sustainability, you have to be willing to find your balance. This is such a big part of my work with clients. I'm telling you, it is such a pivotal part. It is one of the greatest pillars that we focus on. And it's so empowering and liberating when you're able to find that space. Because I choose foods majority of the time that are fueling, that are nourishing, that bring my body wellness, right? That bring my body and my mind nourishment and nutrients and wholeness, right? And I also have the opportunity and the authority and the right to enjoy macaroni salad on 4th of July because that's what life's about. How beautiful it is to be in that space of balance. I feel grateful every day that I get to live my life the way that I do because of how I've gotten to a place where that all or nothing thinking is no longer something that controls my actions. And I'm able to stand firmly and confidently in my lifestyle, and more specifically as it relates to nutrition and movement, because I know when my body needs rest and I know taking time off is productive. And I know that having the macaroni salad on 4th of July is not going to hinder my progress or my journey in any way. It's simply going to allow me to be present with my mother-in-law and thank her for the delicious macaroni salad that she brings every year. Okay? Now, for the record, I don't have a mother-in-law, but I think for the sake of this example, I've carried it through the episode just to really make it clear to you how important it is along a wellness journey to create this for yourself. Okay? So I guess needless to say, if this is something that you struggle with, I'd love to hear from you. Please feel free to email me. My email's in the show notes, or message me on Instagram or anywhere that you can reach me, because I really would love to hear from you and maybe be able to give you some guidance on, what's not working for you, what's working for you, right? And if this resonated with you in any way, or if you're looking to work with me because you feel like this is something that you need support on, that's always an option. But I really would love to hear your thoughts on this specific topic because I think it is so valuable. And the second that we're able to nail this down for ourselves and the second we're able to step into this space is the second that our whole life changes. Our whole entire life changes. And now I don't want to oversimplify it and make it seem like it's like this easy, clear cut, just go do it, right? And figure it out, because it's not. Everyone's different and we're going to all face different challenges. And I think a lot of awareness will come as a result of it, which we know awareness is the key to transformation. So we need that. But I think, as you navigate your wellness journey, be willing to infuse it with your own space of balance and learn how that manifests for you and what comes up for you when working through it. And that's really where you're going to find the most success. Who knew a wellness journey could be so much more than just eat broccoli and go for walks, right? Like, it is a wellness journey for a reason. It's meant to create wholeness in our lives And it's not meant to create rigidity. It's not meant to create restriction or obsession or stress. That's not what wellness is. That's not what well-being is. Okay? So the second that it becomes that, or the second you realize that it is that, I want you to listen to this episode, take a deep breath, and give yourself the space to hone in a little bit closer on what am I doing? What needs to happen here? How can I make this a little bit more balanced? How can I bring nourishment and wholeness to my life without feeling like I'm too consumed by it or I'm restrictive, towards certain foods that I enjoy or whatever the case is, and be willing to do that work for yourself, because I assure you, you will be so much happier, number one, but you'll also see so much more success in how you feel and in your body and in your mind, both now and for the rest of your life. Okay? So thank you so much for being here and for tuning in. And like I said, I know this episode kind of took its turns, and I have nothing in front of me but my mic to speak on, aside from what's coming from my heart about how I feel about this topic and how important it is for us to explore it. And I can imagine this won't be the last time that I talk about balance in some way, because ultimately, I know that this is really where someone can find the happiest, most healthful self. And that is what I want all of you to be able to find for yourself along your journey within your life. We all deserve to have the best quality of life, and this is one of the best ways in order to get there. So thank you again for being here. I appreciate you all. And until next time, be well.